What up? It's 92.9 WDUP, New London's home of timeless hip hop and R&B. It's your boy Mike Mitch Ill. We have a special guest checking in. We have Christopher Falcons, Emmy nominated filmmaker, director, just released Catalyst on demand, Apple TV. Chris, man, thanks for checking in with us. How are you?
Doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
yes, absolutely. Talk about Catalyst. It just released. I saw the trailer, looked amazing. Talk about it a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, man. I mean, Catalyst is an edge of your seat thrill ride type of a movie. I mean, it's a psychological thriller, it's a contained thriller, it's a mystery thriller, sci-fi. It's got it all. It's a roller coaster of emotions.
Mhm.
It is a gritty independent film that we put together, through blood, sweat, and tears of
Mhm.
passion. And yeah, it's great to see it come to life. There's a well, we'll get into some more of the specifics of it in a bit here, but I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely wanted you guys to know that also the film was built around one crazy improvised filmmaking night where we threw these actors into a situation and had them responding in real time and shooting it like a live event, like a social experiment where we had these characters that were, they all had their sort of individual backstories,
Mhm.
right? So the seven guys that are trapped in this room, they had no idea what they were getting into. They just had their own personal backstories, and I threw them into this experience that was designed to trigger them and to put them at odds and create conflict in the room in real time. So what you're seeing are actual real responses, real relationships that are building and sort of dynamics, personal dynamics that are created in the moment, and they had no idea what they were getting into. So as a
Okay.
filmmaking journey, it's wild in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
just saying, it's pretty exciting, man.
Nah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So no script at all, just
No,
improvise.
so half of the movie was built from that first night of filmmaking, and then we basically, from that the magic that we created on that first night, we were able to sort of reverse engineer and let the film tell us what it wanted to be. So it was a
Mhm.
totally unique way of making a movie.
Yeah.
And it was definitely an intense way to make the movie. I'll put it that way. Like the aggression and the things that came up in the moment was real.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, it was pretty wild. And
Yeah.
also because we were doing improvisation, we were using some elements from their individual, like real life, the talents backstories to a degree that, not in every situation, but in a lot of situations, so that they had another access point that was so visceral in the moment that it created that sort of, really intense energy on set that you just can't fake that. I mean, I
I
just
can't.
gotta, it's wild.
Yeah. Nah. I think that's like brave to do that. Is that your first time doing that? I'm
Yeah, I
sure
mean,
not.
this is my first feature. So
Mm.
number one, that is important to know, but also that, like, because it was my first feature, I
Mm.
knew I needed to do something that was going to get attention. That was going to be a wildly unique way of not only just like the story itself, but also the fact that like how we made it
Mm.
required us to actually live the theme of the movie of a sorts of like
Yeah.
trusting the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
I hear
it
that.
was wild, man. It was
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. We over here with Christopher Focus. So give the premise of Catalyst. Just what's it about in general?
Yeah, I mean, like, so, I mean, on the surface level, it's like these seven men are abducted from their lives.
Mm.
They have no idea how they've gotten into this facility. They're waking up. They've got these shock collars around their necks. They have no idea how they got there, and they soon find out that they have every reason to hate each other based on their dark pasts.
Okay.
And these masked captors that are holding them in this facility behind a sort of sci-fi plasma grid that, every time they try to get out, they're zapped with these shock collars, like electric lightning bolts type of thing,
Yeah.
like literally take them out. And so um, the clock starts ticking, and the guys in masks basically are there saying one thing only. They're like, the parasite is among you, choose or die. And so left to their own devices, that all of them basically think, well, we got to kill one of us in here.
Mm.
The parasite's clearly one of us,
Yeah.
right? But one guy in the room has a suspicion, thinks that there's something else that's going on there, and it's up to him to convince the other ones that they should not be killing one of them in there, that there's another way out. Now,
Mhm.
granted, I mind you, also you get to start to realize that a lot of these guys in the room are hardened criminals. So could you imagine being that guy
Yeah.
that has to convince hardened criminals that killing someone's not the way to do it, not the way to get out? And if they mess it up, they all die. So
Damn.
like talk about some stakes,
Yeah,
right? It's wild. Like I was just saying, like I wanted to make a movie that I would want to go see.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So like that's
yeah.
where we're at.
How you come up with these ideas, man, for the movies, man? Like, where does
Oh,
it
look,
come from? Yeah.
honestly, it's wild because like the origins of this story date back
Mm.
pretty far for me. Like I acted in the play 12 Angry Men in high school.
Oh wow.
So like this is kind of like a psychological, mind-bending Christopher Nolan infused type of psychological thriller version of the sort of context that play. I don't know if you've ever seen it or know what I'm talking about, but that's like a contained jury trial, their jury room
Yep.
drama. But like because I acted in that, I was like, oh, I loved seeing how a piece of art could reflect who we are as a society because it deals with racism. That
Mm.
all that's all it deals with, right? Because the rest of the jurors in that story are all like extremely racist, and it's in the times civil rights and all the things. And so, but the one guy in that jury box has to convince the rest of them that the guy is innocent, that they can't convict this guy, right? So
Yeah.
that's the sort of context that I was applying.
Mm.
Wildly different story, but like it reflected who we were at that time as a society, but also who we could be,
Yeah.
right? And so that was my challenge as a filmmaker. I wanted to find a way to take that sort of way of telling a story and the sort of general construct, but to apply it to where we are in the world today.
Mm.
And the inception of this idea, the start of this idea was actually about a decade ago when we started playing with the idea, how could we do this in a sort of unique way? And so it's really fascinating to me that a lot of the issues we were dealing with a decade ago are only worse, more violent, more in our face today than they were back then. So it deals with a lot of hot button social issues. And I'm going to put it out there right now. People got
Yeah.
to know this movie is designed to make you question. It's designed to create the uncomfortable conversation in the world that we are both craving, I think, and also resisting. That there's something in humanity right now that has us avoid having this conversation. So this movie is designed to you either really love it and totally get it,
Mm.
or you probably hate it. And that's interesting because how you watch this movie, how you respond to this movie tells me how you live your life and how you like it's designed to create that conversation. And that's what as an audience member, I'm also fascinated by movies that do that. And so that's what I wanted to do in this movie as well.
Hey, I'm sold, man. Catalyst, make sure you go check that out for
Let's
real.
go, man.
I'm sold, man. Hey, you mentioned that you acted. Did you put yourself in any of your projects before? You ever cast
Yeah, I mean,
yourself?
I acted.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually in Catalyst
Oh, you
for
are? Okay, all
a hot minute.
right.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of a fun way to. And I don't want to give anything away, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a reason why I'm in the movie, and
Yeah.
when you see it, you probably figure it out. But
Hey.
yeah, I love acting, but it's my passion is mostly directing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's always fun to be in the moment and creating things with these actors, whether it's in front or behind the camera. So
Yeah, now I don't blame you. I'll do the same thing. I'll throw myself in every film I got myself in
yeah,
the
let's go.
movie. Speak on the cast. Like one name that kind of stuck out to me was Melanie Liburd. I know about her because she was on Power, Ghost, 50 Cent, everything like that. So I know about
Yeah,
her.
and
Like, yeah.
she played Will Smith's wife in the new Bad Boys movie that just came
Oh yeah,
out. And
yeah,
from what
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like,
That's
yeah,
right.
she's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Melanie is a total sweetheart. And I still remember meeting with her to talk about the project at first because of how we shot this movie. I mean, I'm gonna go on a little tangent and bring it back to Melanie in a
no,
second.
you
But
got it.
how we shot this movie was because the structured improv part happened so early. It happened like years before we even got to the point where we worked with Melanie. But like she had a chance to actually be reading the script, and she was like, "Man, it's a page turner." Like I couldn't put it down. I really wanted to figure out how it was going, and like so the fact that you know. She responded and resonated with the material on so many levels meant that we were really on to something. You know what I mean? I was like, if we can get someone like her, like this is great. And her
Yeah,
performance is so dynamic in many ways because I knew that I needed someone that was going to match the bold energy that like these seven like really intense men bring, but she can do it as one woman. Like
yeah,
that is how awesome she is as an actress.
man.
So like I'm just gonna put that out there.
Yeah. Do you have a hand in actually casting?
Do I well
Like,
I had
do you
I
like
mean
handpick people? Like, do you want from your crew?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to a degree, like a lot of the way we cast this movie was basically through relationships. Like, so
Okay.
David Bianchi, my one of the lead actors in the movie, but also one of my co-producers and story writers on the movie. He's been a long time collaborator of mine.
Yeah.
He has a bunch of relationships with the cast on this because he's worked with them on a lot of projects. He's been friends with Melanie for a lot of years. Um, and then also some of the other casters are people that I also attracted to the project through my own personal relationships as well. So it's like we kind of did this the non-traditional way because we were making it in such a non-traditional way. We needed people that were going to trust our why for making the movie
Mhm.
more than like the words on the page, and also be willing to be so flexible as we were going, because it wasn't like oh, we're shooting for a couple weeks here and then you're out. It was spread out over the course of several years based on why we were making it, how we were making it, and the general schedule that we were going about to actually make it happen. So it was very unique.
Yeah.
But that's why
Not.
we needed to kind of sort of like have that personal relationship with them
Mhm.
first.
Yeah. Now, speaking of David, he was on one of my favorite shows too, Queen of the South. I think I was doing my
Oh,
research.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So, yeah. So you got two actors, actresses from like what I mean shows that I really enjoy. So I think you got a
That's
good eye for talent. You
awesome.
know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, no, David's been great. He was
yeah.
instrumental in making it. He was also a little bit of my, because of the improv part of it, he was kind of my ace in the hole in the room where I was able to like, you know, I had to have certain ways to make sure that certain things were happening in the room. So he was my sort of inside guy in that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool.
Yes. Catalyst on demand right now, Apple TV. Make sure you go watch it. Let's talk about some of your past projects. Razor. I mean, what you were, nominated for an Emmy. Speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, Razor was a wild actually. Like that show. I mean, it's a lot of the same people that we worked with on Catalyst actually. So because Catalyst wrapped before we shot Razor. That's how like we've been kind of stuck in some distribution nightmares over the last couple years with that. And finally it's seeing the light of day. So we're really grateful for that. But like Razor, we used a lot of the crew and even some of the location, like, but shot in a very different way. So it felt like we were kind of bringing the family back together to work on Razor again, and it
Yeah,
was really cool.
yeah.
That, and working with Mina Savari on that, I mean, she got that primetime Emmy nomination. We were the only independent project in the primetime Emmys with a Emmy nomination. So it was pretty
Good
awesome
time.
being there. I mean, it was a fun show. Also, the sort of cyberpunk thing that we have with Catalyst. It's very similar sort of like vibe,
Yeah,
but a very different story. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. No, it's amazing. I mean, how was the whole experience being nominated for an Emmy though? I mean, was that your
I
first
mean, it
time?
was, yeah. Well, I mean, I've been nominated for another Emmy, but more on the commercial side of things.
Okay.
But for a series, yeah, this was my first time where I was nominated well, the show was nominated for that Emmy. And being a series director on it, being in there, and being surrounded on the red carpet with all these, I mean, it was a wild experience. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie, that
I
was pretty
imagine.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there goes John Hamm. Oh, there goes Meryl Streep. Oh, there goes Jodie Foster. I mean, it was like the whole, like it was incredible. I mean, it's just an honor. Like I'm so grateful that I get to work in this business and to work with such amazing people and people that are really just not only great at what they do, but have such a great energy to them. Like the passion that they bring is just so infectious in the best way. And then it keeps us excited about continuing to create together and make things. And because there's such a magic that you create with these people on the day. So it's awesome. That's why it was so cool to get the family back together again for Razor,
Yeah.
and so that was
Yeah.
cool.
Have you ever been starstruck by somebody, you know what I'm saying, like being in the whole filmmaking business and everything like that? Have you been starstruck?
Yeah, yeah, I'll tell
Yeah.
you. I mean, I got it. I'm grateful that I got a chance to work a couple times with Viola Davis, and she
Man,
is,
big time.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
awesome. But
Yeah.
but it's one of those of like, that's Viola Davis. Like,
How do you keep
you
it
know
cool?
what I
How do you keep it cool? Because like I've been around people like I interview people where I may be starstruck and I gotta keep my cool. How do you go about keeping your
mean?
cool?
It's all about the work.
Yeah,
It's what bringing it back to the vision, bringing it back to, and also looking at like, I mean, everyone's human. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And so like at the end of the day, I look at people and I'm like, it's this sort of, you can sense when if someone's just kind, at their core, like beneath the sort of persona, you know,
Mhm.
like understanding how I can relate and access who they are on a being level.
Right.
I'm not trying to talk all like super heady or esoteric here, but the
There you
idea
go.
that like that you just kind of energetically connect on that level, and then it's just like all the rest of that stuff goes away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's go to your background a little bit. How'd you get your start? What was your first major, project? You know,
Wow. My first man, like, oh, that's a good question, man. I mean, I started, I was a producer in commercials for a while, working in Chicago's ad agency community. Um, and worked on a bunch of big brands, Beck's beer, the sugared cereals, and a lot of like Hallmark and all that stuff back in the day. And then I ended up going into um like left that ad business on the producing side and started more on the directing side and did like music videos for the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and Vertical Horizon and a couple artists. And I realized pretty quickly, I'm like, although I like doing music videos, they were kind of a trial ground in a way for different directing tactics and things like I was able to play with. And that opened the door where I was like, you know what, it's time to start directing narrative. And I still was doing the commercial work stuff. And I started doing some, promos for Disney television networks. And so I got into that world. And that's where I got to, work with Viola Davis and Kerry Washington, Ellen Pompeo, all the Shonda Rhimes family. I, launched a bunch of their
big
shows on the
time.
marketing side. So, I got to work with a lot of great people. Um, got to direct Ryan Seacrest a couple times on some of the spots for New Year's Rockin' Eve over the years.
Mhm.
I mean, just basically doing that, but also on like that's the stuff that was sort of paying the bills while I was also doing the narrative component of I directed a short film called Trigger that went on to become qualified for the Academy Awards, and we screened it at the Cannes Film Festival and got a deal there. I mean, there was a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of development that was also happening over the years and projects that I was writing and working on. And some, got really close to seeing the light of day, and that's ultimately also how Catalyst came to be because like there were several feature films that were like so close to getting off the ground and then like world changed or the industry changed, and like they're like, well, we're going to give you 5 million to go make this, but now it's like we can't really get the investors anymore. They're freaking out because the economy's tanking. So I
Yeah.
was just like, you know what, I'm going to find a way to make a movie that I want to go see that's like that's
Uh,
something that I can create on an independent level that I don't need someone else's money for, like we're gonna like at the beginning, and like there, to where we can tell a story that we're passionate about. And that's what brought Catalyst into the world, where I was like, this is, let's do something in a unique way and find a way to bring it out in the world.
yeah.
Tell a story that matters. That was the point. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of that dynamic, with Hollywood changing so much, like, a lot of people doing straight to video on demand instead of, the theatrical feature stuff like that. How do you feel about like the streaming, AI, and how the landscape is
oh,
kind of changing a
geez.
little bit?
Don't go down the AI route. That is I mean, look, man, I had a meeting with a couple programming execs at the Disney side of things the other day, and like I was like, you know what? I love the magic of being on set. And the
Yeah,
thing that destroys that is AI. If we start to go down that route, like could you imagine that like what there is literally no comparison from being on set, working with real people, the emotion, the reality that is brought in the moment. Like and Catalyst is like the complete antidote or opposite of the AI because of how we shot the movie. If you think about it, like the magic that's created in that moment, you can't come up with that stuff on AI.
yeah,
Like no, I mean it's
yeah,
like AI is copying what's already been done. You're never going to get something that is actually truly new, right?
yeah,
And from what I understand about it, and so like um and it's the kind of thing that like when you look at the differences, like if you're just sitting at a computer typing in prompts and trying to get a little response, that's
mhm,
not the magic on a set. You
no,
don't get that. Like
mhm,
bringing all these people together that have their own expertise and their own vision, and there's something there's a spark that is created by real people in the moment that you do not get when you're dealing with artificial intelligence.
yeah.
Full stop. So.
Speaking of that though, what was some of your favorite sets? Like all the projects you've been a part of, like where it felt like it was the best. I mean, it sounds like Catalyst might be on, me on that list as well. But you want to speak
I
about some.
mean,
Yeah.
Catalyst is, I mean, it's been my baby for so many years. I mean, this has been a labor of love for
Mm.
so many years that, for it to finally be shared with the world it means the world to me for real.
Yeah.
And so like there are some really beautiful days on that set. Um, and on Razor too, to be honest. But like I think that um yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, the first night of shooting on Catalyst was something that like we all talked about. We had an Instagram live yesterday with some of the cast members, and we were just like, man, that first day was so unlike anything they've ever done as an like Noel G, who's been in all the Fast and the Furious movies, right?
Mm.
Like he's like Hector in every movie. He's that guy. Like
Yeah.
he is he's like he's been in the business for like 35 years and he's like I've never done anything like this movie. Like and so for guys to say that it shows how magical that first night was. Like we went into it thinking like this is either going to really work or it's not going to work at all,
Yeah.
right? And then we all walked out of it being like we don't know what we got, but we know there's something in there and it's going to take us some time to figure it out. So it took
Yeah.
like a year of crafting that material to get to the point where we were like, yeah, this is we're on the it was such a like malleable process. That's why it took so many years to get this movie from the concept to completion, right?
Mm.
And to get it out into the world. But like that first night of shit, it stands out to me as probably the most unique, intense, uh, just roller coaster of a night that then turned into this.
Yeah, man. That sounds great, man. So, yo, talk about your dream project. If you haven't done it already, what would be
Oh,
your dream project?
oh,
Unlimited budget, do
oh,
whatever you
that's
want.
tough, man.
Pick any location. What would you do, man?
I mean, it's crazy. Look, I've loved the Mission Impossible series. I would love
Mm.
to direct a movie like that. I've
Yeah.
loved Star Wars. I would love to direct a Star Wars movie. I don't think there's one that stands out like the one dream project, but like of all of, I mean, there are all those like sort of iconic brands in cinema that I would love to be a part of and put my own sort of stamp on those those that IP. But
Yeah.
I will say that I can't talk about it at this point because it's so hush hush. There is a project that I'm developing at the moment with some people that is a really important story based on some true stories in life, and I'm excited to see that come to life at a certain point in the near future. I'll just put
Yeah.
it that way.
I had it.
So,
Matter of fact, let me ask you
I'm
this.
sorry to avoid, but
Now,
I can't really talk about it.
now I got it. I got it. You good, man? So let me ask you this, right? So like, I'm old enough to be around when like the golden era of sitcoms in the '90s. You had the series with Razor. Like, can you ever see like the sitcom era ever coming back to the TV at all? Like the Family Matters, Fresh Prince, Martin, Seinfeld,
Yeah,
Friends. You
honestly,
know?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, I'm not. That's not really my wheelhouse, as it were. But I mean, I know that like the sitcom, like I've seen, like there are some sitcoms that are starting to come back. Like I think Tim Allen just came out with another sitcom. Like
Yeah.
in the sort of multicam world.
Mm.
Because that's like what you're talking about is more on the like sort of multicam.
Yeah. I just feel
You
like
know,
we don't have that no more.
yeah.
There's always a place for like feature films like Catalyst and stuff like that. And then there's sitcoms. I know you did a series with Razor. Not saying that's the same thing, but
Yeah,
yeah,
well, I mean, Razor's very different because
yeah, yeah,
it was more of the sci-fi
yeah, yeah.
sci-fi cyberpunk thing like
But
Catalyst is. But
even we don't got X Files no more. It's just like there's no
well,
out.
that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
That's true.
There's really no shows like that coming out, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting because like shows have kind of evolved to this more like they used to be like 22 episodes, things like
All
22,
right.
24.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, or longer. Like there was a lot, right?
Mm.
And shows have kind of turned into that sort of um almost like a limited run series, like where it's like there's 6 episodes, or sometimes there's 12 episodes or 15 episodes. Like they're
Yeah.
much shorter. But what that's done is it allows them to get sort of bigger name talent involved.
Mm.
That's like Viola Davis was like, we're only doing 12 episodes because that's like all she was willing to do, from what I understand. But again,
But
from the outside, I'm
that's how she
hearing
comes
this.
out. She was like, I'm only gonna do
Well,
12. That's it.
well,
Oh.
I don't know. I wasn't in the
Oh.
contract
Oh.
negotiations, but like what I'm saying is that like I know
Yeah.
but that's how you can get a of that caliber actor or actress like to say yes to a series. Like
Yeah.
they get sort of A-list talent to say yes because they're not it's not going to take up as much time as doing 22 episodes. There's like twice the length of a series, right?
Yeah.
Or 24 episodes or whatever it is. Right. So like I think that sort of game has been played where they're trying to like tighten things up.
Mm.
And I don't know what all goes into the sort of decision making on that front too, whether it's a financial thing or it's a like, there is some value with like tightening up the series a bit because you kind of get less of those filler episodes. Cause like I
Yeah.
know that in the past, like the sort of longer series would have a bunch of like sort of episodes, you're like, yeah,
Mhm.
why was that episode even in the series? Like, it's not really that good.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so hopefully that's where I think that by tightening it up, it's made for a more, effective storytelling
Mm, yeah.
in all of the episodes as opposed to like having those sort of filler ones. So, but I think, there's been this like sort of renaissance of television turning into like, to have really cinematic television these days.
Mhm.
Um, that's fun to watch. And so we'll see where it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. How do you manage egos? I'm sure somebody come out with their chest all
Woo!
poked out, but how do you deal with that? You know what
Oh, Mike, that's a good question.
I'm saying?
I mean, look, again, I kind of bring it back to what you asked me earlier about
Mhm.
like the starstruck thing because I think it's the same answer is
Mhm.
that at people's core, like they are not their mask,
Mhm.
right? They are not their persona, and in a lot of ways, that's also what thematically ties into Catalyst too. Like there's a certain component of this message in the movie,
Mhm.
embedded in the movie that like underneath all the masks we put on to sort of protect ourselves and uh you know um shield ourselves and survive in this world, right?
Mhm.
There is a masterpiece in all of us. And
Yeah.
so when you see someone coming at you with like ego or this sort of like temper tantrum or whatever it might look like,
Yeah.
right? Being willing and choosing to see the masterpiece underneath the BS,
Mhm.
right? Underneath the baggage is it's a skill that takes practice. It's not easy. It's not easy. But think about how this we live in this world right now where like we're all just like on edge,
Yeah.
right? And what would it look like if we actually just stopped for a moment when someone comes at us and ask like what happened to them that has them choosing this?
Yeah.
Like who hurt them so bad early on in their life
Yeah.
that
Who
would
hurt you?
have them do oh no, no joke, man.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
but you don't necessarily ask them that, but like having the sense of compassion
Yeah.
that we all have wounds. Every human being on this planet has wounds
Absolutely.
that went in at a certain point in our life, and like that's a very important thing to keep in mind as
Mhm.
someone tags you, like he kind of triggers you along the way. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yep.
Like it's just coming from curiosity instead of judgment. That's the key. I think that's if to sum it up. You
Yeah.
know.
That. So, speak about some of your inspirations. You know what I mean? To actually make you take this trip. You know what I mean? Down this path you've been taking. You know who you looked up to that kind of inspired your work.
Filmmaking wise, I mean, definitely Christopher Nolan's work has always been a massive influence for me. If you were to take like Christopher Nolan's work and some David Fincher and James Cameron and a little bit of Michael Bay and I mean, they're like kind of combining a lot of their work over and Tony Scott and Ridley Scott and all the, like these really sort of um visual storytelling directors,
Mhm.
but with the sort of the sort of mind-bending worlds and reality of Christopher Nolan stuff.
Yeah.
That if you were to put that all in a blender, you kind of see where my origin comes from in a lot of ways. But I also like to add a sense of an emotional core to it. That's where like um, you know being on the how do I put that like to add an emotional through line where some other like um Christopher Nolan's movies, I love them and they're very intellectual.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I like that, but also with a heavy dose of the sort of raw like visceral emotion that is underneath all of that too. So, and again, not judging, not
Yeah,
trying to like compare or
yeah,
whatever, because I
yeah,
am a huge fan of Christopher Nolan.
yeah,
And also like I think that my unique stamp on it is a different, like, how do I use music to tell the story in a way that maybe is a little bit more emotional than what a Nolan would do. Like, and again, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's not one or the other is better. It's just there's nuances that I like to add that's different. And look, you give the same script to one of those different directors, or you'd get a bunch of different versions of they
yeah,
all have their own voice, and
yeah,
that's why as an artist, determining like finding your path is so important of like finding your own voice as a filmmaker, and that took years of practice. That's to get to this point. And you know um that's what I think, having the music videos and the short films and building, and even the promos, like, yeah, you learn something about who you are and how you see the world by doing all these different projects. Does that make sense?
absolutely. So speak about directing your debut. I mean, if I got it
Oh
right,
yeah.
online film school. Speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's like, so look, I put together an online course because I'm like, I'm not doing it for the money. I do it because I love seeing people get out of their own way.
Mm,
Like, I wish I had this sort of thing back when I first got to Los Angeles, and it didn't have to take so many years to get out of my own way to
mm,
actually go and
yeah,
make this stuff happen, right?
yeah,
Because like, so that's where like this course is designed to really be the sort of interruption in our mindset in a way, and
mm,
like look at where we are our own worst enemies, and then get you into creation mode, and like getting out there and actually creating a couple different films throughout the course of the process that are throwing you into certain obstructions and things that require you to develop your own voice as a filmmaker,
yeah,
right? Like, yeah, I had an audio book out there, you can listen to that, but like those are more of the inspirational sides of things, as opposed to
mm,
actually creating the work. And that's why I decided to put the online course together. And it's still, we're like, I'm going to be building and growing that now that once the film is kind of out, I'm going to be really focusing more time on building that community and getting people, um, you know, doing that work.
mm,
And so it'd be exciting to get some of your listeners to jump in,
yeah,
and work with us. I
yeah,
mean, because it's both getting out of your own way. It's also creating. It's being in creation mode as opposed to survival, and kind of being in that cycle of self-sabotage that has us not go after what we love and what we want, our vision for our lives.
mm,
And then also building a community that can support each other. Like, the cool thing about it is that in its sort of infancy, we brought together people that have all different backgrounds. There's VFX artists, there's drone operators, there's, a doctor that jumped in and decided to make her own film because she was like, man, I really wanted to make a movie about women in medicine, and especially also in the African American community. And so it's like, it's beautiful. Like, she's like, I would have waited until my deathbed to do this, but like, because of this course, like, I found my own way to do it, and it's starting to win awards. It's like, it's
yeah,
such a cool thing to witness, and it's like, to just pay it forward, like, so that's why I built the directing your debut stuff, is because I'm like, I want to be able to rub off on other filmmakers that are currently in their own way, but that have this voice inside of them that's calling them to do something, and that they don't know whether they can trust it or not. And they're going to, and like, the intention is that as a result of this process, that they actually do take action towards whatever that is. And it looks different. Everyone who does this stuff looks very different, and they're all on their own journey, whether it's a narrative film or documentary, or one
mm,
guy, is doing more like content creation on Instagram. It's like, it's all, it's built on that idea of how you do anything is how you do everything. And
yeah,
so when you start to address something in one area of your life, watch how the rest of your life starts to transform. And we're using directing as the sort of breakthrough vehicle whether or not you even want to go and continue directing, like you may find something as a result of making these projects that unlocks your life. And it's such a cool thing to witness, you
Yeah.
know? So thank you for asking about that. That's cool. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
no,
that, man.
I think it's great, because like you could just kind of like just fold up and do your own thing. You're actually trying to give back and help people get in
Yeah.
the industry. So now I think that's very
Yeah,
noble.
man.
Oh, so we over here with Chris Folkens. Before we wrap it up, man, just let everybody know what you got next for 2025, man. What's on deck and how people can stay in touch with you.
Well, I'm on Instagram at Chris Folkens,
Mhm.
and then also at Catalyst Movie is our Instagram profile we're
Mhm.
building, and so please add me on both. I'd love to have a conversation, and I'm a little busy at the moment, but
Yeah.
I'd love to interact with people,
Yep.
and hear how the film resonates with people. I'd
Mhm.
love to shout out to us, post some comments, hashtag so we can see and be a part of that conversation. And yeah, I mean, like, look, again, this film, seeing it go out in the world, it means the world to me. And like, so as people get to see it, it's available right now in the US, UK, and Canada. And I know we're deploying on other platforms and other things as we go, but Apple TV is the place to find it right now. And I've got a few other projects that are in development. Again, like I said, I can't really go into all that stuff, but we're looking to get those off the ground later this year. Um, and yeah, man, I'm really excited about what 2025 has in store. So,
Yes. Chris Folkens. Hey, if you need a DJ, you know what I mean, cash your boy, holla at me.
well, let's go, Mike. I love it. That's great. Thank you.
Nah, but no, it's great talking to you, and you gave a lot of insight to what's going on in this business, and I'm looking forward to the movie. I'm gonna check it out right away. I saw the
Check it out,
trailer.
and then hit me
Yeah,
up. Hit me up on Instagram. I want to hear your thoughts. Let's
I
go, man.
got you. I will. So yeah, thanks again, Chris, man. It's 929 WDUP.